The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, shattering the quiet rhythm of my home office. Rain was hammering against the window panes of my Seattle apartment, a gray backdrop to the lines of code scrolling across my dual monitors. I was deep in the architecture of a new security protocol for the startup I had quietly founded 3 years ago, a company my family knew nothing about. To them, I was just Ella, the single, boring IT worker who stared at screens all day and probably needed help paying her rent. My phone buzzed. Serena. My stomach tightened. My younger sister didn't call to chat. She called when she needed a deposit, a babysitter, or an ego boost. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but the thought of my niece, Lily, made me slide my finger across the screen. Lily had been battling a severe corneal infection for months. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Ella, you need to come to the hospital. Now." Serena's voice wasn't just frantic, it was commanding. There was no please. "Is it Lily? Is she okay?" My heart jumped into my throat. I pushed my expensive ergonomic chair back and stood up. "The doctor says the infection has scarred her cornea completely. She's going to lose vision in that eye unless she gets a transplant immediately. The waiting list is too long, Ella. She doesn't have time." "Oh my God," I breathed, grabbing my keys. "I'm on my way. We'll figure this out. Maybe there's a private donor list or..." "No," Serena cut me off. Her tone shifted from panic to a strange, icy resolve. "We don't need a list. We have family. We have you." I froze, hand halfway to the door handle. "What do you mean?" "The doctor said a living donor is possible if the tissue matches. A close relative. Mom and Dad are too old, their eyes aren't viable. Mark has his diabetes issues." She paused and I could hear the sharp intake of breath on the other end. "That leaves you." I stood in the center of my living room, the sound of the rain suddenly deafening. "Serena, are you asking me to give up an eye?" "Not an eye, Ella, don't be dramatic. Just the cornea. You'll still have the eye, you just won't see out of it clearly. But you have two. I can't just give away my vision, Serena. That's a major surgery. It's permanent blindness in one eye. So, you have glasses anyway." Her voice rose, shrill and entitled. "Look, let's be real here. I am a model. My face is my career. My eyes are my livelihood. If I have a scar, or if one eye looks different, my agency drops me. I lose everything. My contracts, the brand deals, everything that supports this family." I closed my eyes, a familiar headache forming behind my temples. "Serena, you haven't booked a major campaign in 6 months. And my job, your job." She laughed, a cruel, dismissive sound. "You sit in a dark room and stare at code. You can do that with one eye. You can zoom in on the screen. It doesn't matter what you look like. No one looks at you, Ella. But people look at me. I need to be perfect. You don't." The insult landed with the precision of a sniper shot. It wasn't new. This was the narrative of our lives. Serena was the golden child, the beauty queen, the one destined for stardom. I was the scapegoat, the sturdy, reliable, plain sister who existed to facilitate Serena's shine. "I'm a senior programmer, Serena. I need depth perception. I need to drive. I have a life. A life. You're 34, single, and living in an apartment. I have a husband. I have a child. I have a legacy." She started crying now, but it sounded practiced. "How can you be so selfish? This is for Lily. Do you hate your niece? Is that it? You're jealous of me so you want my daughter to suffer." "I love Lily more than anything," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "But you are asking me to mutilate myself because you don't want to risk a scar." I am asking you to do your duty, she screamed. Mom and Dad agree. They're expecting you at dinner tonight to sign the papers. Dr. Hill is friends with Dad, he's rushing the paperwork. Don't bother coming to the hospital yet. Come to Mom's house at 7 p.m. And Ella. Don't embarrass me. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. My hand was shaking. It wasn't just the audacity of the request, it was the coordination. She had already spoken to our parents. They had already decided. My body was just a resource depot for Serena's needs. If she needed money, I was the ATM. If she needed a babysitter, I was the nanny. And now she needed parts. I looked around my apartment. The sleek modern furniture, the view of the Space Needle, the awards on my shelf, they knew none of this. To them, I was struggling Ella who lived in a small place downtown. They didn't know I owned the building. They didn't know I had paid off their mortgage 3 years ago through an anonymous trust. They didn't know that Serena's lifestyle was partially funded by the generic dividends I funneled into my parents' accounts. I walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. My eyes were hazel, flecked with gold. They were sharp, intelligent eyes. They were mine. Not this time, I whispered to the empty room. But as I grabbed my coat to head to my parents' house, a cold knot formed in my stomach. I knew my family. This wasn't going to be a discussion. It was going to be an ambush. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to roll over. I needed to prepare myself. I checked my phone, battery full. I turned on the voice recorder app and slipped it into my blazer pocket. If they wanted a villain, I wouldn't be it. But I would be the witness. Driving to my parents' house in the suburbs always felt like traveling back in time to a version of myself I hated, the small, quiet girl who took up as little space as possible. The house was a sprawling 2-story colonial that I had secretly saved from foreclosure 5 years ago. I pulled my modest Toyota Camry into the driveway, parking behind Serena's leased Range Rover. The contrast was intentional. I drove a car that ran, she drove a car that made a statement. The smell of pot roast hit me the moment I opened the front door. It was my mother's specialty, usually reserved for birthdays or celebrations. Tonight, it smelled like a trap. Ella. You're late, my mother, Judith, called out from the dining room. She didn't come to the door to hug me. She never did. I walked into the dining room. It was set like a formal hearing. My father, Frank, sat at the head of the table, his face stern. Judith was pacing near the sideboard. Serena sat next to her husband, Mark, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Mark looked uncomfortable, staring at his plate. I'm on time, Mom. It's 7 p.m. exactly, I said, taking the seat opposite Serena. Sit down, Dad said, his voice heavy with gravity. We have a crisis, and we need a solution. We don't have time for your usual stubbornness. I'm not being stubborn, Dad. I'm being asked to go blind in one eye, I replied, keeping my hands folded on the table to hide their shaking. It's not blindness, Ella, Mom snapped, slamming a bowl of mashed potatoes onto the table. It's reduced vision. There's a difference. Dr. Hill explained it perfectly. You'll adjust. Brain neuroplasticity or whatever. You're smart, you'll figure it out. Why isn't Serena doing it? I asked, looking directly at my sister. She's the mother. She's a closer genetic match. The rejection risk would be lower. Serena looked up, her eyes red-rimmed, but her makeup perfectly intact. We went over this. My career. I have a shoot for Vogue next month. A callback for a massive skincare line. If I show up with a red eye or a drooping lid, I'm done. My face is the only asset this family has. The only asset. I repeated, fighting the urge to laugh hysterically. Serena, I have a master's degree in computer science. I have a career. Oh, stop it, Dad waved his hand dismissively. You play with computers. You sit in a cubicle. Nobody sees you, Ella. Nobody cares what you look like. Serena brings beauty into the world. It's different. And let's be honest, honey, Mom chimed in, her voice dropping to that sickly sweet tone she used when she was being cruel. You're not exactly dating anyone. You don't have prospects lining up. Serena has a husband to keep happy. You're just you. With your glasses and your ponytails. A scar on your eye won't change your life. But it would destroy hers. I felt the air leave my lungs. There it was. The naked truth of how they saw me. Spare parts. A utility object. So my bodily autonomy is worth less than Serena's potential modeling gigs. I asked, my voice deadly quiet. Mark shifted in his seat. Ella, look, it's not just about looks. Serena's income, it helps everyone. If she loses her contracts, we all suffer. We're just asking you to take one for the team. For Lily. I looked at Mark. He was a decent man, usually. He worked as a contractor, worked hard. But he was blinded by Serena's light just like the rest of them. Does Lily know? I asked. Does she know you're asking her, and to give up an eye because her mother is too vain to do it? Don't you dare. Serena slammed her hand on the table. Don't you turn this around. This is about love. If you loved her, you wouldn't hesitate. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me. You want me to fail. You want me to be ugly like you. The room went silent. The word ugly hung in the air like smoke. That's enough, Dad said, but he didn't look at Serena. He looked at me. Ella, here is the situation. The surgery is scheduled for Thursday. We need you to sign the consent forms tonight so Dr. Hill can process them. We are a family. Families sacrifice for each other. We sacrificed to put you through college. I paid my own way through college, I corrected him. We gave you a roof over your head. Mom shouted. We fed you. And now, when we ask for one thing to save your niece's sight and your sister's future, you act like we're asking for your heart. You are so selfish. I don't know where we went wrong with you. She slid a thick packet of papers across the polished wood table. It stopped right in front of me. Informed consent for living corneal donation. I looked at the papers, then up at the three faces staring at me. Expectant. Entitled. No, I said. Excuse me. Dad's face turned purple. No. I will not sign. I will not donate my cornea. I will help pay for a specialist. I will help find a donor on the National Registry. I will fly us anywhere in the world for a better surgeon. But I will not cut out a piece of my eye because Serena doesn't want to lose a skincare contract. I stood up. If you walk out that door, Mom hissed, clutching the back of her chair, don't bother coming back for Christmas. Don't bother calling. You are killing your niece's future. I think Serena is the one doing that, I said, grabbing my purse. You're dead to us if you leave. Serena screamed, standing up and knocking her chair over. I promise you, Ella, I will make everyone know what a monster you are. You'll be alone forever. I walked out. I didn't run. I walked. My legs felt like lead, and my heart was hammering a painful rhythm against my ribs. I got into my car, locked the doors, and only then did I let out the breath I had been holding. I drove 2 blocks away, pulled over and vomited on the side of the road. The recording on my phone was still running. I stopped it. I had the threats. I had the insults. But I knew this was just the beginning. Serena wasn't just a brat, she was vindictive. And Mom and Dad were her enforcers. I wiped my mouth, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were still there. And they were wide open. The silence lasted less than 12 hours. By Wednesday morning, the war had moved from the dining room table to the digital battlefield. I woke up to a barrage of notifications. My phone was vibrating so constantly it was buzzing its way across my nightstand. I picked it up, squinting against the blue light, and opened Facebook. There, pinned to the top of Serena's profile, was a long, emotional post. It was accompanied by a picture of Lily in her hospital bed, looking small and fragile with an eye patch. "My heart is breaking," the post read. "My baby girl needs a transplant to save her sight. The doctors say a family match is her only hope. But sadly, not everyone in a family believes in sacrifice. Some people are too attached to their own comfort to save a child. Please pray for us as we navigate this betrayal. We are alone in this fight." She didn't tag me. She didn't have to. The comment section was already a dumpster fire of speculation and judgment. Who would do that? Is it her sister? The computer one. OMG, that's evil. I would give my eyes for my niece in a heartbeat. Some people are just cold. Karma will get them. I felt a wave of nausea. She was weaponizing strangers' empathy against me. Then the texts started coming. Aunt Linda, my father's sister who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, "Ella, I can't believe what I'm hearing. How can you sleep at night? Cousin Mike, family helps family, don't be a dick." I set my phone to do not disturb and tried to focus on work. I had a board meeting with my investors in 2 days regarding the acquisition of my secondary software patent. I needed to be sharp. But the emotional noise was deafening. At noon, the buzzer to my apartment building rang. I checked the video intercom. It was Mark. He looked haggard. He was wearing his work clothes, dust on his boots, twisting a baseball cap in his hands. I buzzed him in. When I opened my apartment door, he didn't come in. He stood in the hallway, looking at the floor. "Ella, look, I'm sorry about last night," he started, his voice rough. The yelling, it got out of hand. It wasn't just yelling, Mark. It was an ultimatum. I know. He sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "But you have to understand. She's falling apart. She hasn't stopped crying. She says if she does the surgery, she'll be disfigured. She says the stress will kill her career." "And you believe that?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "You really believe a tiny incision on the sclera will end her career?" "I don't know about the modeling stuff, Ella. I'm a construction guy. But I know she brings in the money. That modeling money pays for the house, the cars, Lily's private school. If that dries up, we're underwater. I can't cover all that on my salary." I bit my tongue. "She doesn't pay for the house," I wanted to scream. "I do. But I couldn't reveal my hand yet." "So this is financial for you?" I asked. Mark reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a checkbook. "Look. I know it's a big ask. I know it's your body. But maybe we can make it worth your while." He scribbled something and tore off the check. He held it out to me. $50,000. "I took a loan against my truck and my business equipment," he said, his eyes pleading. "It's all I can access right now without Serena knowing. Take it. Call it compensation. Pain and suffering. Just sign the papers, Ella. Please." I stared at the check. It fluttered slightly in his shaking hand. It broke my heart. Mark was a good man being ground into dust by my sister's ambition. He thought I was holding out for money. He thought I was a mercenary. "Put that away, Mark," I said softly. "It's not enough. I can try to get more, but it's not about the money. I snapped, my control slipping. My eye is not for sale. And the fact that you think you can buy my body parts tells me exactly how little you respect me. I'm trying to save my daughter, he yelled, the desperation cracking his voice. Then tell your wife to get on the table, I said coldly. Goodbye, Mark. I closed the door on his face. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood, listening to his heavy footsteps retreat down the hall. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. I saw the caller ID, Mom's house. I played it. It wasn't Mom. It was Lily. Hi, Auntie Ella. Her voice was small, wobbly. I could hear heavy breathing in the background, Mom or Serena coaching her. Mommy says you're mad at us. Mommy says she needs her eyes to work, so she can buy me toys and food. But you just look at computers. Can you please give me your eye? I don't want to be blind. Please don't let me be blind. I love you. The message ended with a soft click. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the sofa cushions with a muffled thud. This was low. Even for them, this was a new cavern of moral bankruptcy. They were using a terrified 9-year-old as a battering ram. I walked to the window, staring out at the gray Seattle skyline. The sadness was evaporating, burned away by a white-hot anger. They weren't just asking for a favor. They were trying to destroy me psychologically until I submitted. They wanted to break me. But they had forgotten something fundamental. I wasn't the weak little girl who cried in her room anymore. I was a founder. I solved complex system failures for a living. And I was looking at a system that was corrupted to its core. I picked up my phone. I didn't delete the voicemail. I saved it. I backed it up to the cloud. Then I opened a new folder on my laptop titled Project Golden Child. If they wanted a war, I would give them one. But I wouldn't fight with tears and Facebook posts. I would fight with data. Thursday. The day the surgery was supposed to happen. Instead of being prepped for anesthesia, I was sitting in my living room, staring at my laptop screen. The silence in my apartment was heavy, but on my screen, the noise was crystal clear. 3 years ago, when my father had a mild heart scare, I insisted on installing a high-end security system in their house. Cameras in the living room, kitchen, and hallways. I told them it was for emergency monitoring in case they fell. I paid the monthly subscription. I had the admin access. Over time, they had completely forgotten the little black lenses tucked into the corners of the crown molding. I pulled up the live feed from the kitchen. My mother and Serena were sitting at the breakfast nook, drinking coffee. Lily must have been upstairs or at school. The audio was crisp. She's not going to budge, Mom, Serena was saying, picking at a croissant. She's actually ghosting us. Can you believe the nerve? She was always difficult, Mom sighed, stirring her mug. Even as a baby. Never wanted to be held. Not like you, Serena. You were always so sweet. Well, what do we do now? Dr. Hill says if we don't book the OR by Friday, we lose the slot. We keep pushing, Mom said. Then she leaned in closer, her voice dropping, but the microphone picked it up perfectly. And honestly, honey, maybe it's for the best if we delay a week. I was looking at Ella's insurance policy. I froze. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What do you mean? Serena asked. Well, Mom took a sip. You know Ella put us down as beneficiaries on her life insurance and her disability riders years ago. When she started that little job. Yeah. If she does the surgery, Mom continued, a calculating glint in her eyes, and if there are complications. Say she loses vision completely in that eye, or she gets an infection and can't work for a few months, she could claim disability. And since I have power of attorney over her medical decisions, if she's incapacitated, we could manage the payout. Serena finished the sentence, a slow smile spreading across her face. That would cover the mortgage for a year. Maybe even that trip to Cabo. Exactly, Mom nodded. Plus, if she's partially blinded, she'll have to rely on us more. She's been getting too independent lately. Too uppity with that condo of hers. It would be good for her to come back home. Be a family again. Where we can keep an eye on her finances. God, you're a genius, Mom, Serena laughed. Plus, let's be real. It's not like she needs to look pretty to get a husband. That ship sailed. We're doing her a favor giving her a purpose. I sat back in my chair, the blood draining from my face. It wasn't just about the eye. It wasn't just about Serena's vanity. It was about control. It was about cannibalizing my life to feed theirs. They were discussing my potential maiming and disability like they were planning a vacation budget. They wanted me diminished. They wanted me broken and dependent because a successful, independent Ella was of no use to them. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It wasn't a scream. It was the sound of a heavy steel door slamming shut and locking. The grief I had been carrying, the longing for their love, the desire to be accepted, evaporated instantly. It was replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. It was the same feeling I got when I found a critical bug in a line of code. The emotion vanished, only the logic remained. Problem: parasitic family members attempting bodily harm and financial fraud. Solution: total systemic purge. I hit save on the video clip. I backed it up to 3 different servers. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in a personal capacity before. Vance and Associates, Sarah Vance speaking. Hey Sarah, I said. My voice was steady. Too steady. It's Ella. Ella. Hey, I haven't heard from you in ages. How's the tech mogul life? Are we finally announcing the acquisition? Not yet. I need to hire you. Personally. Sarah's tone shifted instantly. She was the best corporate litigator in Seattle, and my closest friend since college. She knew where the bodies were buried because she helped me write the contracts to bury them. What's wrong? Is it the IP suit? No. It's my family. Oh boy. What did Serena do this time? Need a bail bond? They are trying to coerce me into an organ donation, and I just caught them on tape discussing insurance fraud and financial abuse regarding my potential disability. There was a silence on the line. Say that again. I need you to prepare a cease and desist. But before that, I need to destroy their leverage. I need a private investigator, Sarah. I need to know everything about Serena's finances, her employment status, and her medical records. I'm done playing the nice sister. I am opening a file right now, Sarah said, the sound of typing furious in the background. I've been waiting 10 years for you to let me go after them, Ella. Just say the word. The word is nuclear, I said. I want to know why a successful model needs her sister's cornea. I want to know why they are so desperate for money that they'd blind me. Find out everything. Give me 24 hours, Sarah said. I'll turn over every rock. I hung up. I looked at the screen again. Mom and Serena were laughing about something, oblivious to the fact that they had just handed me the weapon that would end their reign. I stood up and walked to the window. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking. I wasn't the scapegoat anymore. I was the architect of their downfall. And I was going to enjoy watching the house of cards collapse. The next morning, I didn't go to the office. I set up a command center on my dining table. Sarah was working the legal angles, but I needed to do some social engineering of my own. The core of Serena's argument, the pillar supporting this entire insane demand, was her career. I am a model. My face is my fortune. I support the family. I opened my laptop and pulled up the website for Lux Talent Management, the agency Serena had been with for the past 4 years. Her photo was still on the talent page, buried deep in the commercial print section. Not high fashion, but respectable catalog work. I grabbed my burner phone, a relic from my early testing days, and dialed the agency's main line. I pitched my voice up an octave, adopting the frantic, high-energy tone of a stressed personal assistant. Lux Talent, this is Jessica. Hi Jessica. This is Chloe from Velour Skincare Marketing. I am so sorry to call so late, but we have a casting crisis for our Real Moms campaign, and our director specifically asked for Serena. I have her composite card here, but I can't seem to find her direct booking calendar. Is she available for a hold next Tuesday? Oh, Serena, let me check, the receptionist said. I heard clicking. One moment, let me transfer you to Mrs. Gable. She handles the legacy talent. Mrs. Gable. The director of booking. I knew the name. Serena complained about her constantly. This is Martha Gable, a gravelly, no-nonsense voice answered. Hi Mrs. Gable, this is Chloe from Velour. Just chasing availability for Serena for a Tier 1 shoot. We're looking at a $15,000 day rate. I threw out a number I knew would be tempting. There was a pause. A long, heavy pause. Honey, Mrs. Gable said, her voice dropping the professional veneer. I don't know who gave you Serena's card, but it must be old. Excuse me. Is she booked? Serena is not with the agency anymore, Mrs. Gable said bluntly. My heart hammered against my ribs. Oh? I see her on the website. Web team is slow, Gable scoffed. Look, I'll save you the time. We terminated Serena's representation 3 months ago. 3 months. Oh my, I feigned shock. She didn't mention that. Was it a contract dispute? Mrs. Gable sighed. She sounded tired. It was a showing up 3 hours late and screaming at a photographer because the catering wasn't gluten-free dispute. Plus, between you and me, she let herself go. She gained 20 pounds, which is fine, we have a plus-size division, but she refused to pivot. She insisted she was still sample size. She popped a zipper on a vintage Chanel loaner. We had to let her go. She's uninsurable. I see, I said, my hand flying across my notepad. So she hasn't worked in. She hasn't booked a paid gig in 6 months. The last check we cut her was for a hand modeling job in February for $200. If you want a pro, I can send you a package of girls who actually show up. Thank you, Martha. You've been very helpful. I hung up. I stared at the notes. Fired 3 months ago. No income for 6 months. Uninsurable. The whole story, the I need my eyes for my career, the I support the family, was a lie. A fabrication. She wasn't protecting a career, she was protecting an ego. She was unemployed. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah. Check your secure email. PI report is in. You were right about the finances. I opened the file. It was a bloodbath. Serena and Mark were drowning. They had 3 maxed-out credit cards. The lease on the Range Rover was 2 months behind. Mark's construction business had a lien on it from a supplier. And then, the kicker. A transfer history. Every month, for the last 3 years, my parents had been transferring $2,000 to Serena's account. The memo line read, allowance or help for Lily. My blood ran cold. I sent my parents $3,500 a month. I told them it was for their retirement, their medication, their comfort. Instead, they were funneling nearly 60% of my money directly to Serena to subsidize her fake lifestyle, while she pretended to be the rich, successful one. I was funding my own abuser. I was paying for the Range Rover that she drove to come demand my eye. I felt a laugh bubbling up in my chest. It was dark and jagged. So, I whispered. The golden child is broke. And the scapegoat is the bank. I looked at the clock. It was Friday afternoon. The family intervention was scheduled for Sunday after church. They thought they were coming to break me. I printed Mrs. Gable's statement. I printed the bank transfers. I printed the credit card delinquency reports. I wasn't just bringing a knife to a gunfight. I was bringing a drone strike. But I needed one last piece of the puzzle. The medicals. Why was she really refusing to donate? Was it really just vanity, or was there something else? I grabbed my keys. It was time to pay a visit to Dr. Hill. He was an old family friend, yes. But he was also a man with a gambling debt I knew about because my algorithm had flagged his name in a risk assessment database years ago. It was a long shot, but leverage was leverage. I wasn't Ella the daughter anymore. I was Ella the creditor. And I was coming to collect. Dr. Hill's clinic was in a medical arts building that smelled of antiseptic and expensive cologne. He had been our family doctor for 20 years, the man who gave me my vaccines and stitched up Serena's knee when she fell off her bike. He was also the man who was currently conspiring to mutilate me. I didn't have an appointment. I walked past the receptionist, flashing a badge from a medical software conference I'd spoken at last year. It looked official enough. I knocked once on his private office door and entered before he could answer. Dr. Hill looked up, startled. He was aging, his face puffy, eyes darting nervously. Ella? You can't just barge in here. I have patience. I don't care, Dr. Hill, I said, closing the door and locking it. I sat down in the leather chair opposite him. We need to talk about the surgery. Good, he sighed, relieved. Your parents said you were being difficult. I'm glad you came to your senses. I can squeeze the pre-op tests in right now if I'm not here to sign. I cut him off. I'm here to see Serena's file. He scoffed. Ella, you know I can't do that. HIPAA laws. Doctor-patient confidentiality. HIPAA doesn't cover fraud, doctor, I said calmly. I placed a folder on his desk. It wasn't the medical file. It was a printout of a public record regarding a lawsuit against him for malpractice in 2018, and a separate sheet showing his substantial debts to a casino in Nevada. It was public info if you knew where to look, but devastating in print. He paled. What is this? Are you threatening me? I'm a data analyst, doctor. I find patterns. Pattern 1, you have massive debt. Pattern 2, my sister, who has no income, is somehow bypassing the donor waiting list with your help. Pattern 3, you are pressuring a reluctant donor, me, which is an ethical violation that could strip your license. He swallowed hard, loosening his tie. I am just trying to help a little girl. Lily needs this. Does she? Or does she just need a donor? Tell me the truth. Is Serena a match? He looked at the folder, then at me. He slumped in his chair. Yes. She is a perfect match. Better than you, actually. Her HLAs are identical. So why isn't she doing it? She refused, Hill muttered, taking off his glasses and rubbing his eyes. She came in for the screening 3 weeks ago. When I told her the procedure involves a small incision that might leave a microscopic scar on the sclera, invisible to the naked eye, mind you, but technically there, she flipped out. She said she couldn't risk her aesthetic. She demanded we ask you. And you went along with it. She threatened to sue me, he admitted, his voice weak. She said if I didn't help her convince you, she'd tell everyone I misdiagnosed the infection in the first place. Which I didn't. But with my current financial situation, I can't afford a legal battle. So you decided to carve me up instead. Ella, you have glasses. It's cosmetic for her, it's functional for you. It is surgery, Dr. Hill. I slammed my hand on the desk. It is my eyesight. You swore an oath to do no harm, and you are bullying a patient into an unnecessary procedure to save your own skin. I stood up, leaning over the desk. Here is what is going to happen. You are going to give me a copy of Serena's compatibility test results. The one that proves she is a fit donor. And you are going to write a note stating that her refusal is purely elective and cosmetic. I can't give you her records, he whispered. Then I give this folder to the medical board, I pointed to the papers on his desk. And I tell them you are coercing a donor. You'll lose your license by Monday. He stared at me with pure hatred, but his hand moved to his computer. The printer whirred. 2 minutes later, I walked out of the office with a crisp, warm piece of paper. Patient, Serena Miller. Donor status, approved. High compatibility. Notes, patient declined procedure citing cosmetic concerns regarding career impact. I walked to my car, shaking. Not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of the betrayal. It wasn't just vanity. It was a calculated decision that I was expendable. Serena knew she could save her daughter weeks ago. She chose not to. She chose to let Lily suffer in pain for 3 extra weeks, just to maneuver me into taking the knife. I sat in the driver's seat and looked at the document. Patient declined. Okay, I said to the empty car. Okay. I drove home. I had the financial records. I had the employment records. I had the medical records. The family meeting was in 2 days. They were expecting a lamb to the slaughter. Instead, they were getting the butcher. I spent the rest of the weekend prepping. I called Sarah and we went over the script. I arranged a meeting with a realtor for Monday morning. I needed to know the market value of my parents' house, the house I legally owned. Sunday morning came. I dressed carefully. No hoodie, no jeans. I put on a tailored black blazer, sharp heels, and my contact lenses. I rarely wore contacts because my eyes were dry, but today, I wanted them to see my eyes. I wanted them to see exactly what they couldn't have. I drove to the house. The driveway was full. Aunts, uncles, the pastor. They had called in the cavalry. I checked my bag. The file was there. The USB drive with the security footage was there. I took a deep breath. Showtime, I whispered. The living room was suffocatingly warm. My mother had packed nearly 15 people into the space, Aunt Linda, Cousin Mike, Pastor John from their church, and a smattering of neighbors who had known me since I was a baby. It was a classic shaming circle. When I entered, the chatter died instantly. All eyes turned to me. I stood in the doorway, clutching my leather portfolio. Ella, Mom said, breaking the silence. She was wearing her Sunday best, a pearl necklace clutching her throat. She moved toward me with open arms, a performance for the audience. We were so worried you wouldn't come. We've been praying for you. I stepped sideways, avoiding the hug. I'm here, Mom. Let's get this over with. Come, sit, Dad gestured to a single wooden chair placed in the center of the room. It looked like an interrogation stool. Serena sat on the plush sofa nearby, holding Lily on her lap. Lily had a fresh bandage on her eye and looked miserable. My heart broke for her, but I steeled myself. I sat down. Pastor John cleared his throat. Ella, child. Your parents have shared the heavy burden this family is carrying. Scripture tells us, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. How much more for your own flesh and blood? Pastor, I said calmly. Did Scripture mention anything about enabling vanity? Excuse me. Aunt Linda gasped from the corner. Vanity? Saving a child's sight is vanity. It is when the mother can do it but chooses not to, I said, looking directly at Serena. Serena burst into tears. Immediate, loud, racking sobs. See how she is. She blames me. She knows I can't risk my career. She knows I'm the one holding this family up. That's right, Dad boomed, standing up. Ella, stop being jealous. We know you've always resented Serena's success. But this is low. You are willing to let Lily go blind out of spite. We aren't leaving this room until you sign those papers, Mom declared, crossing her arms. We have the notary right here. She pointed to a neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, who held a stamp. Mark is ready to drive you to the clinic tonight for the prep. And if I don't? I asked. Then you are no longer part of this family, Dad said. His face was red, a vein throbbing in his neck. I will write you out of the will. You will not be welcome at Christmas. You will be dead to us. And we will see you for emotional distress and child negligence. Sarah Vance might be your friend, but even she can't defend heartlessness. We'll go to the press, Ella, Serena sniffled, wiping her eyes carefully to not smudge her liner. I have a lot of followers. I will post a video telling the world that my sister refused to save my daughter. You'll be pariah. You'll lose your job. Who wants to hire a monster? The room murmured in agreement. Disgusting, I heard someone whisper. I looked around the circle of faces. These were people I had known my whole life. People I had bought Christmas gifts for. People who had eaten my cooking. And not one of them asked me how I felt. Not one of them asked if I was okay with surgery. They just saw a resource to be harvested. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice rising just enough to command the room. The only reason I have to do this is because Serena is a successful model who pays the bills, and I am a nobody with no financial value. Is that the consensus? It's the truth, Mark said from the doorway. Serena pays the mortgage. Serena bought the cars. You do your computer thing, but it's not the same. And my eyes don't matter because I'm ugly, I added. We didn't say ugly, Mom said quickly, glancing at the pastor. We said plain. You rely on your brain, Ella. Serena relies on her beauty. It's just economics. Economics, I repeated. Okay. I stood up. Sit down. Dad barked. No, I said. I think it's time for a different kind of presentation. I walked over to the large flat-screen TV above the fireplace. What is she doing? Serena asked, her voice hitching. I have some questions, I said, plugging in my laptop via the HDMI cable that was dangling there. Since we are talking about economics and truth. Ella, don't you dare play games, Mom warned. First question, I said, opening a file. Serena, you said you have a Vogue shoot next month. And a skincare campaign. Can you confirm that? Yes. Of course. Serena looked around nervously. Why does that matter? Because I tapped a key. The screen flickered to life. I have a recording here from Mrs. Martha Gable, Director of Lux Talent Management. Let's listen. I hit play. The audio was loud. Serena is not with the agency anymore. We terminated Serena's representation 3 months ago. She hasn't booked a paid gig in 6 months. She gained 20 pounds, useless. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Serena's face drained of color. Mark looked at her, his eyes wide. Serena. What is she talking about? It's a lie. Serena shrieked. She faked it. That's AI. Is it? I asked. Then explain this. I clicked the next slide. A bank statement. Mark and Serena's joint account. Overdrawn. Overdrawn. Late fee. And here. I pointed to the incoming transfers. Allowance from Mom and Dad, $2,000. Every month. I turned to Mark. She's not paying the bills, Mark. My parents are. Or rather. I paused for effect. I am. What? Dad frowned. What are you talking about? Who do you think pays off your mortgage, Dad? I asked. Who do you think sends that dividend check every month? The one you sign over to Serena. I pulled up the deed to the house. Owner, EM Trust. Trustee, Ella Marie Miller. I bought this house 3 years ago when the bank was about to foreclose on you, I said, looking at my parents. I set up the trust so you wouldn't feel embarrassed. I pay the mortgage. I pay the taxes. I send you the allowance. Gasps filled the room. Aunt Linda put a hand over her mouth. So I stepped closer to Serena. You aren't a model. You're unemployed. You aren't supporting the family. I am. And you want my eye. But. Serena stammered. My scar. Ah, the scar, I said. Let's talk about the scar. I clicked the final slide. The document from Dr. Hill. Patient refused procedure. Cosmetic concerns. You are a match, Serena, I said, my voice shaking with the force of my anger. You could have saved Lily 3 weeks ago. You chose not to. You let your daughter sit in the dark because you didn't want a microscopic scar on an eye that no camera has pointed at in 6 months. I turned to the room. Now tell me, I pointed at the pastor, at the aunts, at my parents. Who is the selfish one? The silence in the living room was different now. It wasn't the silence of judgment, it was the silence of a bomb blast aftermath. The ringing in the ears before the screaming starts. Mark was the first to move. He walked slowly toward Serena. His face wasn't angry, it was shattered. You're a match, he whispered. You told me you weren't. You told me the doctor said your corneas were too thin. Mark, listen to me, Serena stood up, dumping Lily unceremoniously onto the sofa cushions. She's twisting it. Dr. Hill said it could be risky. I did it for us. If I look damaged, I can't get back in the game. There is no game. I shouted. You were fired, Serena. Fired. I was on a break, she screamed back, her face contorted and ugly. I was pivoting. You were pivoting to my bank account, I said. And my body parts. Is this true, Judith? Dad turned to Mom, his hands shaking. The house, the money, it's Ella. Mom looked like a deer in headlights. She looked from me to Serena, her brain trying to recalibrate 20 years of favoritism. I didn't know about the house. But the money. Ella sends money, yes. But I thought Serena needed it more. You took my money, I said, staring at her. Money I worked for. Money I earned while you mocked me for staring at screens. And you gave it to her to buy a Range Rover while she lied to her husband. We were just trying to help, Mom stammered. And the insurance? I asked. I pulled out the USB drive. I have video, Mom. From Thursday. You and Serena in the kitchen. Discussing how great it would be if I went blind, so you could claim my disability insurance. A vacation to Cabo, wasn't it? The color left Mom's face so completely she looked like a corpse. That's illegal, Sarah Vance's voice rang out. Everyone jumped. I hadn't come alone. Sarah had been waiting on the front porch. I opened the door and she stepped in, sharp as a tack in her navy suit. Who is this? Dad demanded. Sarah Vance, attorney at law, she said, handing Dad a business card. I represent Ella Miller. And you, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, and you, Serena Miller, are currently looking at charges for conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, coercion, and financial abuse of a vulnerable adult, though Ella is hardly vulnerable anymore. Lawyer? Mark looked terrified. Mark, I said softly. You're not the target here. Unless you knew. I didn't, Mark said, tears streaming down his face. He looked at Serena with pure disgust. I swear to God, Ella, I didn't know she was a match. I didn't know she was fired. I thought she was the only way we survived. She's a parasite, Mark, I said. And she was willing to feed on me and Lily to keep her host alive. Get out, Mark said to Serena. What? Serena blinked. Get out of my house. I'm taking Lily. We're going to my mom's. It's not your house. Serena screeched. It's my parents' house. Actually, I interrupted. It's my house. I walked over to the TV and unplugged my laptop. The screen went black, leaving them in the dim natural light. Dad, Mom, I said. You have 30 days. 30 days for what? Dad whispered, sinking into his chair. To vacate the premises. I'm selling the house. You can't do that. Mom shrieked. We're your parents. We raised you. You raised a spare part, I corrected her. You raised an insurance policy. You didn't raise a daughter. You made it very clear tonight that my value is only what I can give to Serena. Well, the bank is closed. Ella, please, Dad pleaded. Where will we go? We have no savings. Maybe Serena can take you in, I smiled, a cold, humorless smile. With her modeling money. And Mark, I turned to him. I will pay for Lily's surgery. Not with my eye, but with my money. I'll fly her to the best specialist in Boston. I'll cover everything. But Serena comes nowhere near her during recovery. Mark nodded, sobbing. He picked up Lily, who was looking around with wide, confused eyes. Thank you, Ella. Thank you. Serena, I looked at my sister one last time. She was slumped on the floor, weeping, her mascara running in black streaks down her face, the face she valued more than her daughter's sight. You wanted to be the center of attention. Congratulations. You are. I nodded to Sarah. Let's go. We walked out of the house. The fresh air hit me like a physical blow. The rain had cleared completely, and the sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and violet. I walked to my car, my legs shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. You did good, Sarah said, squeezing my shoulder. That was biblical. It's not over, I said, looking back at the house where shouting had now erupted, Dad yelling at Mom, Mark yelling at Serena. They won't go quietly. No, Sarah agreed. But now we have the evidence. And we have the high ground. I got into my car. I put my key in the ignition, but I didn't start it immediately. I looked at my eyes in the rearview mirror again. They were tired. They were red-rimmed. But they were whole. And for the first time in my life, they saw everything clearly. I started the engine. I had a niece to save and a house to sell. My life as the golden child's shadow was officially over. The air in the living room felt pressurized, like the inside of a submarine diving past its crushed depth. My declaration that I owned the house hadn't just silenced them, it had sucked the oxygen right out of their lungs. Mom was the first to try and rewrite reality. It was her superpower, after all. She laughed, a brittle, frantic sound that cracked in the middle. Don't be ridiculous, Ella, she said, waving a hand at the darkened TV screen where the deed had been displayed moments ago. You own the house. Please. We signed the papers with the bank. We dealt with Mr. Henderson. We've been paying the mortgage for 30 years. You were paying the mortgage, I corrected her, my voice steady, devoid of the trembling that used to plague me when I confronted her. Until 5 years ago. Remember when Dad's construction firm went under? Remember the foreclosure notice taped to this very front door? You called me crying, asking for $500 for groceries. Dad flinched. He stared at his hands, his knuckles white. You told me you handled it, Dad muttered. You said you found a private investor who bought the debt and restructured the loan. I was the investor, Dad, I said. I set up the EM Trust. EM Ella Miller. I bought the debt. I paid off the arrears. And I let you stay here, rent-free, paying only a token amount that I cycled right back into your accounts as that allowance you love so much. You tricked us, Mom whispered, her eyes narrowing. The shock was fading, replaced by that familiar, poisonous defensive anger. You let us believe we were independent. You let us believe we were taking care of ourselves. I let you keep your dignity. I snapped, losing my cool for a fraction of a second. I saved you from being homeless. And how did you repay me? By taking the money I gave you, money I worked 80-hour weeks for, and funneling it to Serena, so she could pretend to be a celebrity. You used my charity to fund her vanity, and then you used her vanity to justify carving up my eye. We didn't know. Serena wailed from the floor. She had stopped crying for a moment to listen to the money talk, but now she was back to playing the victim. How were we supposed to know you were rich? You dress like a hobo. You drive a Toyota. It's called living below your means, Serena, I said, looking down at her. Something you wouldn't understand. You measure worth by labels. I measure it by equity. Mark stood up then. He looked like a man waking up from a decade-long coma. He looked at Serena, then at the house, then at me. So, Mark's voice was hoarse. The brand deals, the residuals, the money Serena said she was bringing in. It was Ella, Sarah Vance interjected, her tone professional but sharp. We have the forensic accounting. Every time Ella's trust deposited money into your parents' account, within 24 hours, a transfer was made to Serena's account. You've been living on your sister-in-law's dime for 3 years, Mark. Mark turned to Serena. You told me you bought the car with the chaotic beauty campaign money. I was going to pay it back. Serena stammered, scrambling backward as Mark stepped toward her. I just needed a bridge loan. The industry is tough right now, Mark. You don't understand the pressure. You let me feel like a failure, Mark said, his voice shaking. 4 years. You told me my business wasn't enough. You told me I wasn't providing enough. You made me feel small so you could feel big. And all this time, you were taking handouts from the sister you made fun of every single day. I did it for us. Serena shrieked. You did it for you, I said. Just like you refused the surgery for you. Just like you tried to take my eye for you. I walked over to the table where the informed consent papers still lay, waiting for my signature. I picked them up. The paper felt heavy, like a physical manifestation of their entitlement. You know what the saddest part is? I asked the room. If you had just asked me, if you had come to me honestly and said, Ella, we're broke, Serena is terrified of the surgery, we need help. I would have helped. I would have paid for the best doctors. I might have even considered the donation if Serena truly couldn't do it. But you didn't ask. You demanded. You lied. You conspired. I ripped the papers in half. Then in half again. The sound of tearing paper was loud in the silent room. You tried to harvest me, I said, dropping the confetti onto the polished floor my money had paid to refinish. And in the process, you lost the only safety net you had. You can't kick us out, Mom said, her voice trembling but defiant. Squatters' rights. Or family rights. No judge will evict elderly parents just because their daughter is having a tantrum. Sarah Vance stepped forward, holding a manila envelope. Actually, Mrs. Miller, since there is no lease, you are considered tenants at will. In the state of Washington, we are required to give you 20 days' notice. Ella is giving you 30. That is generous. She handed the envelope to Dad. He didn't take it. It fell to the floor next to his feet. "This is an eviction notice," Sarah stated clearly. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises. If you are not out by noon on the 30th, the sheriff will remove you." "Ella," Dad looked at me, tears streaming down his face. "Please. We're your parents." "No," I said, feeling a strange lightness in my chest. "You're Serena's parents. You made that choice a long time ago. Now she can take care of you." I turned to leave, but I stopped and looked at Mark. "Mark," I said. "You have a choice to make. Right now." Mark looked at Serena, who was sobbing into the carpet. Then he looked at Lily, who was sitting quietly on the couch, looking scared. He walked over and picked up his daughter. "We're going," Mark said. "Mark." "No." Serena lunged for his leg. "You can't leave me. I'm your wife." He shook her off. "I'm going to my mother's. Don't follow me. I'll send the details for the eye specialist in Boston to your email, Mark," I said. "I'll book the tickets for you and Lily tomorrow." "Thank you, Ella," Mark said. He didn't look back at Serena. He walked out the door. I followed him, Sarah close behind me. As I stepped onto the porch, I heard the wailing start inside the house. It sounded like a funeral. And in a way, it was. The 30 days that followed were not quiet. If I thought the war was over when I walked out that door, I was naive. Narcissists don't go quietly into the night, they burn the earth on their way out. Day 1, my phone blew up. Not with apologies, but with vitriol. "Mom sent me 40 texts in an hour. How can you do this to your own flesh and blood? Your father is having chest pains because of you. God will punish you for this greed." I blocked the number. Day 3, Serena tried to regain control of the narrative. She went live on TikTok. I watched it from a burner account. She looked disheveled, no makeup, sitting on the floor of her bedroom, my bedroom, technically. "Guys," she whispered to the camera, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want to bring this to the internet, but I'm being abused. My sister, she's a millionaire who hid her money from us while we starved. And now, because I couldn't donate an organ due to medical complications, she's evicting our elderly parents. She's kicking us onto the street. Please, I need help. We have nowhere to go." The comments were initially supportive. "OMG, that's a monster. Sue her." But then, the internet did what the internet does best, it investigated. Someone found my LinkedIn profile. Then they found the public records of the house deed. Then, miraculously, someone found the old forum posts from a modeling site where Serena had ranted about being fired for being too real. And then, I decided to fire back. Not with tears but with the truth. I authorized Sarah to release a limited statement to a local blog that had picked up Serena's story. We didn't release the medical records, that was illegal, but we released the financial trust documents showing the years of payments I had made. We released the text messages where Mom discussed the insurance fraud. The tide turned overnight. Serena's comments section became a war zone. "Wait, she paid your mortgage for 5 years and you're calling her greedy. You wanted her to go blind so you could get a vacation to Cabo. WTF. Serena deleted her account 2 days later. On day 15, the flying monkeys arrived. Aunt Linda showed up at my office building. Security called me down to the lobby. She was standing there, purse clutched to her chest, looking righteous. "Ella," she started as soon as I exited the elevator. "This has gone too far. Your mother is packing boxes in tears. You have made your point. Now stop this cruelty." "Did you know, Aunt Linda?" I asked, stopping 5 feet away from her. "Did you know they were planning to use my disability insurance to go on vacation?" That was just talk," she stammered. "People say things when they're stressed. People don't plan felonies when they're stressed, Linda. They plan them when they're predators." But where will they go? She pleaded. Serena has no money. Mark has filed for legal separation and froze the joint accounts. Your parents are on a fixed income. They have you, I said, a cold smile touching my lips. You've always been so vocal about family supporting family. Why don't you take them in? Linda's face went slack. I don't have the room. I have the guest room, but sounds perfect, I said. 3 adults in 1 guest room. It'll be cozy. Family bonding. You are heartless, she hissed. No, I said, turning back to the elevator. I'm just finished being the heart donor. On day 29, the day before the eviction deadline, I went to the house one last time. I brought a security detail, 2 off-duty officers Sarah had recommended. I wasn't taking chances. The house was a wreck. Boxes were piled everywhere. The lawn, usually manicured, was overgrown. I found Dad in the garage. He was packing his tools. He looked 10 years older than he had a month ago. Ella, he said, not looking up. Dad. We found a rental, he said quietly. A 2-bedroom apartment near the airport. It's small. It's what you can afford, I said. He stopped packing and looked at me. His eyes were red. I'm sorry. I waited. I waited for the but. I'm sorry we pushed too hard, he continued. We were so used to you being the strong one. The one who didn't need anything. Serena, she needs so much. We thought you could handle it. That's not an apology, Dad, I said softly. That's an excuse. You didn't lean on me because I was strong. You fed on me because I was available. You sacrificed me on the altar of Serena's ego because it was easier than parenting her. She's your sister, he whispered. She's a stranger, I said. And after tomorrow, so are you. I walked into the kitchen. Mom was there, wrapping china in newspaper. She didn't look at me. The silence between us was a canyon. I left the keys on the counter, she said to the air. We'll be out by 10. Good. I hope you're happy, she spat, finally turning to face me. Her face was contorted with bitterness. You have your big empty house. You have your money. But you have no family. You'll die alone, Ella. I'd rather die alone than live as an organ farm, I replied. Goodbye, Mom. I walked out. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel joy. I felt a profound, exhausting relief. Like putting down a heavy backpack I had been carrying since I was 5 years old. The next day at noon, the sheriff called. Property is vacated, ma'am. Keys are secured. It was done. The physical ties were severed. But the emotional fallout was just beginning, and surprisingly, the first wave wasn't grief. It was freedom. If you've ever had to cut off a toxic family member, you know this feeling. It's terrifying. It's lonely. But for the first time in your life, the air you breathe is your own. You aren't holding your breath waiting for the next demand. I went to my office, closed the door, and cried for 10 minutes. Then I wiped my face, put on my glasses, my beautiful, functional glasses, and got back to work. The fallout for Serena was swift, brutal, and entirely self-inflicted. Without my parents' allowance, which was really my money, and with Mark freezing her access to his remaining funds, the illusion of her life crumbled within weeks. Mark was serious about the separation. He didn't just leave, he filed for emergency custody of Lily, citing Serena's medical neglect, delaying the surgery for cosmetic reasons. My attorney, Sarah, provided Mark's lawyer with the affidavit from Dr. Hill. That document was the nail in the coffin of Serena's motherhood. The court hearing was virtual, but Mark sent me the transcript. The judge was not amused. When faced with the evidence that Serena had prioritized a non-existent modeling contract over her daughter's vision, the judge granted Mark temporary full custody. Serena was allowed supervised visits only. Stripped of her child, her husband, her home, and her income, Serena was forced to move into that small two-bedroom apartment near the airport with Mom and Dad. I heard about it through the grapevine, Aunt Linda, who couldn't help but gossip even though she hated me. Apparently, the dynamic in the golden apartment shifted rapidly. Without money to smooth things over, the resentment boiled over. Mom, who had always doted on Serena, suddenly found herself living with a 31-year-old woman who refused to clean, refused to cook, and spent all day screaming at her phone. The golden child is only golden when they reflect glory. When they reflect failure, they become a burden. 3 months after the eviction, I received a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was from Dad. "Ella, it's hard here. Your mother cries every day. Serena is difficult. She blames us for everything. She says we didn't fight hard enough for her. She steals money from my wallet. I know we have no right to ask. But if you could find it in your heart to unblock our numbers, just to talk. We miss you. Love, Dad." I stared at the letter. A part of me, the old Ella, wanted to call. Wanted to save them. Wanted to say, "I told you so," and then fix it. But then I looked at the photo on my desk. It was a picture Mark had sent me last week. It was Lily, smiling, no eye patch. She was holding a drawing she had made. It was a picture of me, with big glasses and a superhero cape. I took Dad's letter and put it in the shredder. I wasn't their retirement plan anymore. And I wasn't their emotional dumping ground. They had created the monster that was Serena. Now they had to live in the cage with her. The most satisfying moment came not from me, but from the universe doing its work. I was at a coffee shop downtown, meeting a potential investor for my new startup. I looked out the window and saw a woman handing out flyers for a discount hair salon. She was wearing a heavy coat, looking tired, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. It was Serena. She looked normal. Not the filtered, airbrushed goddess she pretended to be. Just a tired, angry-looking woman trying to make a buck. She locked eyes with me through the glass. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I didn't look away. I just watched her. She froze. For a second, I saw the old arrogance flare up, the desire to storm in and make a scene. But then she looked at my suit, my laptop, the calm confidence radiating off me. And she looked at the flyers in her hand. She turned around and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. It was the quietest victory of my life. The realization that she held no power over me. Her beauty was fading, her influence was non-existent, and her hold on the family had resulted in their mutual destruction. Mark, on the other hand, was flourishing. We met for lunch once a month to discuss Lily. "She asks about you all the time," Mark told me over sandwiches. "The surgery, it was a miracle, Ella. The specialist in Boston said if we had waited another month, the damage would have been permanent." "You saved her sight." "Dr. Thorne saved her sight," I corrected him. "I just paid the bill." "No," Mark shook his head. "You stood up to them. If you had caved, if you had given your eye, Serena would have won. She would have learned that she can butcher people to get what she wants. You broke the cycle." "How is she?" I asked, hesitating. "Lily? She's happy. She's in therapy. She understands that mommy is sick. Not in her body, but in her heart. We're working on it." "And Serena?" Mark sighed. "She's trying to sue me for alimony. But without a job, and with the fraud evidence, her lawyer is telling her to settle. She's working at a salon now. Receptionist. It's humbling for her." "Good," I said. "Humility is what she needs." "And you?" Mark asked. "How are you really, Ella?" I looked down at my hands. They weren't shaking. I looked at my reflection in the spoon. My eyes were bright. I'm free, Mark, I said. I'm finally free. 6 months post-eviction. My life has transformed in ways I couldn't have engineered even with the best code. The house sold for $1.2 million. After capital gains tax and paying off the remaining fees, I put the money into a trust for Lily's education. I figured it was poetic justice. The house that was supposed to fund Serena's vanity would now fund Lily's future, a future where she would learn to value her mind, not just her face. I didn't keep a dime of the house money. I didn't want it. It felt tainted. But my career. It skyrocketed. The acquisition of my startup went through. I was no longer just a programmer staring at screens. I was the CTO of a major security firm. My face was on the cover of Tech Monthly. I sent a copy to my parents' apartment. Petty? Maybe. But I wanted them to see exactly what ugly Ella had achieved while they were betting on the wrong horse. I started dating, too. A man named David. He's an architect. He loves my glasses. He loves my brain. When I told him the story of my eye, he didn't ask why I didn't donate. He asked how I survived them for so long. You have the clearest vision of anyone I know, he told me once. But the real ending of this story isn't about my success or Serena's failure. It's about the peace that comes after the war. Last weekend, I went to Boston to visit Mark and Lily. We went to the aquarium. Lily was pressing her face against the glass of the shark tank. She was pointing out the different fish, reading the signs aloud. Look, Auntie Ella, she shouted, pointing with excitement. That shark has a scar. Just like a pirate. I crouched down next to her. I looked into her eyes. Both of them were clear. The transplant had healed beautifully. There was no cloudiness. No darkness. Just bright, curious blue eyes taking in the world. It does have a scar, I smiled. Scars mean you survived something tough, Lily. She looked at me, serious for a moment. Mommy has a scar too. On her heart. Yes, sweetie, I said, smoothing her hair. She does. Will it heal? I hesitated. I looked at Mark, standing nearby, watching us with a protective smile. Some scars heal, I said honestly. And some just remind us not to make the same mistake again. Lily hugged me. I like your eyes, Auntie Ella. They are gold. Thank you, Lily. As I flew back to Seattle that night, looking out the window at the city lights below, I realized something profound. For 34 years, I thought I was the broken one. I thought I was the defective prototype that came off the assembly line before the perfect model, Serena, was built. I spent my life trying to pay for my existence, trying to earn love through utility. But I wasn't broken. I was the load-bearing wall. I was the structure that held the roof up. And when I finally walked away, the house fell down, not because I destroyed it, but because I stopped carrying it. To anyone out there listening to this, sitting in the dark, wondering if you owe your family your body, your money, or your soul just because you share DNA, you don't. You are not an appliance. You are not an insurance policy. You are not a spare part. If they only love you when you are bleeding for them, they don't love you. They are cannibals. And the only way to win against a cannibal is to starve them. I checked my phone as the plane landed. One blocked message in the spam folder. From Mom. Happy birthday, Ella. We miss you. I didn't feel a pang of guilt. I didn't feel a need to reply. I just felt indifferent. I deleted the message. I picked up my bag, walked out of the airport, and hailed a cab. The air was crisp and cold. My eyes were wide open, and the world looked beautiful. My name is Ella. I am a programmer. I am a sister. And I kept my eyes. It wasn't easy to relive all of this, but reading your comments has been like therapy for me. I see you. I see those of you who are the Ella of your family, carrying the weight while the golden child gets the glory. Stay strong. Protect your peace. And keep your eyes open.